actually going to start. I'm just going to greetings and thanks for tuning in. Anybody who's currently watching, or if you're planning on watching on YouTube. I'm Don Taylor from Main Street Middle School in Montpelier, and welcome to the third episode of our PLP Pathways Webinar series. The project is sponsored by the Middle Grades Collaborative, which can be found at middlegradescollaborative.org. We're also sponsored by the Tarrant Institute for Innovative Education. As you know, if you've tuned in before, this is our grassroots effort to support teachers in their work with PLPs, and our goal is to help teachers through web-based resources, webinars, and social media. And thanks for being with us this afternoon. My co-host is Maura Kelly. I think she'll be, she's a 7th grade humanities teacher at People's Academy. She'll be joining us in just a second. And I'd also like to introduce our second guest, Kevin Hunt from the Williston Central School. And Kevin, do you mind just starting off and telling us where you are in the PLP process as of this week?
Yeah, thanks for having me back. So we are actually just wrapping up with our PLPs for the first trimester. Actually, we had our students work on making sure all their evidence was in their e-portfolios, which houses their PLPs. With each piece of evidence, they had to do a quick reflection on how it connects back to each one of their goals. They have 5 goals total. And then for each goal, they had to write a brief reflection on how they think they did throughout the trimester, what any challenges were, and what their next steps are. So we had everybody finish that up this week, because we're going to start our parent-teacher conferences the week after we get back from Thanksgiving break.
Okay, so just to clarify there, you guys you've set your goals, you've collected evidence, and now you are going to be having your parent conferences, and can you tell me what the dates of those are?
We're going to be starting them the first week of December.
Okay, great. And I see that Maura has joined us, and Maura, we just kind of went through the introduction for the webinar. Would you mind introducing yourself? Oh. Maura, can you hear me? I don't know if she can hear me yet. Okay, so just really quick, I wanted to review last month's webinar, and Kevin talked about the progress at Williston Central School. I'll get to that in just a little bit. We also had a discussion about setting goals, and then we talked about growth and reflection, collecting evidence, and reflecting on progress. And then Life Lagueros from the Tarrant Institute talked to us about the real reflection framework. And then once again, we asked for any contributors or collaborators on the project. So what we're going to talk about today just a little bit, I think Maura, can you hear me now, Maura? I don't know if she can hear us. She's going to talk about core values that she's been working with. And then I'd also like to talk about the PLP-based student conferences. And this might, I don't know if it has any impact on what you're doing, but we just finished our conferences last week, and that was an interesting experience. And so I'll start talking about that, but then also I'd like to go back to the conversation that we had about setting goals and tying goals to specific evidence. That was really a revelation for me. We'll get back to that in just a second, but that has really had immediate impacts on my practice. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about that too.
Really?
So the first thing, Kevin, can you just tell me, what are your parent conferences? What's that going to look like, and how have you prepared for that?
Yeah, so our parent conferences are all student-led. So after our Hopes and Dreams conference, which happened in the beginning of the school year, we have 3 follow-up conferences each trimester, which are based around the PLP. So we come in and we basically have the students open up their e-portfolios, and what they do is they take us through step by step, their different pages, their different tabs, and whatnot. It's really a great chance for the students to have a chance to be advocates, so they can self-advocate, show all their great work that they've been doing. We get to see all their evidence. It's a great chance for the parents to listen to it from them, and we go over their reports at that time. So really, typically they take about a half hour to 45 minutes because we do have discussions after each goal saying, is this still relevant? Do we still need it? Do we need to tweak it in any way? And then we talk about, after we're done going over each goal, which the students have 5 goals, we do look at their class reports just to see if there's any red flags or just celebrate some of the great work that they've been doing.
So let me just get this straight. You said you had 3 conferences across the course of the trimester, and I'm going to hold that thought. Maura, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can. I'm so sorry. Something is going on with the internet. I had to restart my computer.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to finish up this conversation real quick, and then we'll introduce you. So, Kevin, you said that you had 3 conferences. You had a Hopes and Dreams conference, and you had 3 additional conferences with your kids. And that's not with parents, right?
Yes.
It is with parents, or it's not with parents?
It is with parents. We have the students and the parents come to conferences.
So you have that 3 times in a per trimester?
Nope. So throughout the course of the year, we have 1 per trimester.
Oh, okay. I got it. All right. And so this coming up will be the first time, the week after Thanksgiving, that'll be the first time that you meet with the parents?
Right. So this will be the first time since our Hopes and Dreams conference that we'll meet with the parents where the kids have done work on their goals, where they'll have evidence to show and they'll have their class reports.
Okay. So I'm going to take a break right now. I just want to let Maura introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Maura Kelly. I'm a 7th grade humanities teacher at People's Academy Middle Level, and we've been implementing PLPs for 2 years here.
All right, thanks, Maura. It's good to see you again, and we'll have time for you to talk about that core values blog that you posted the other day. So, Kevin, let me just I'll explain to you what we're doing with our conferences and maybe how that went, and I'd like to kind of just hear more about what you're doing. So what we did is, excuse me, we had our open house, which was October 8th, and at our October 8th open house, we knew that we were going to have to set an information stream up for parents. And so what we did, we provided some information about Act 77 and the PLP, and we also provided information about the fact that our conferences would be based around the PLP, so that instead of talking about assessment scores and where kids were, we were talking about goals. And then I did a couple blog entries about that. We sent an information packet home to parents, and then we also had our kids. They finished up their PLP, and then they also, I developed a script for the conference, and they practiced that script. And so on the day of the conference, parents and students were encouraged to show up 15 minutes before the actual conference time. The kids went through the script, and they showed them their PLP with a focus on the goals. They also had at that time their assessment levels, but again, we encouraged parents and students to focus more on the goals in the process. And then at that time, they then came and met with the teachers. I'm on a 2-person team, so with 7th graders, we met with both of us. With 8th graders, it was at least one of the core teachers. And so it was interesting. It was a much different conversation this year when you're talking about goals. It wasn't a, oh, well, why is my kid scoring this, and what did they miss? And it was much more about how, where's the progress? What are the goals? How's that going to improve our kids' performance? And I thought it was just really different. And then the other thing that happened is we asked the parents to take a survey after they had completed going through the script and the conference. And so far we have 49 kids on our team, and so far we have 35 responses. And the responses have been overwhelmingly positive about the structure of the conference and also about understanding the PLP. So 91% of our parents gave a 4 or 5 in terms of they really understood the structure of the conference and how it supports the student. And then 97% understood the kids' plan and understood the goals for growth. So we really used it as a kind of a way of getting some data about how the parents view the PLP, but we also kind of changed the whole framework of our conferences. And thus far, it seems to, it seems to have worked. There was a couple parents who, talked about maybe it wasn't the best way for their kid to be learning, but overall, over 90% of the parents were really positive. Now, I'll stop talking here in a second, but one of the interesting things is that in order to really complete the cycle and be completely transparent, I'm actually going to publish those results, anonymously and washed of all identifiable information. But I'm going to publish those in a blog post and a handout that's going to go back to the parents with the report cards for the trimester. So we're going to, as a team, thank them for their participation. We're going to tell them what the next steps will be with the PLP, but we're also going to show them the results from the survey that they took, and thereby sort of really start this transparent communication and development of the PLPs.
That's great.
Yeah, so I don't know where that's going, but it was kind of interesting. We don't meet with the kids that many times. We meet once in the fall with 8th graders, and then we meet in the spring with our 7th graders, but 8th graders are then moving over to start their conferences. They meet at the high school.
Right.
So that's what it is. Do you feel that meeting with the parents 3 times a year is beneficial?
Yeah, it's just great for checking in. Especially we like to keep the goals fluid. So if we have to tweak anything, everybody is on board. And it's just those trimester breaks. I just feel like, if there's things that need to be changed, it's just the right amount of time where we have enough time to gain some more evidence to see where the kids are going, where they need to go to check in. And it's great, especially we have obviously there's a whole spectrum between the parents. Some are really involved with their students' work, and others not so much. So it's a great chance for everybody to get a sense of what their child is doing while they're in school.
And excuse me, how do you schedule that many conferences? Do you guys get like 2 days off for each time you're doing conferences?
Swift House, our team, typically we never use the conference day that we have. We get them all done ahead of time, so we will all have conferences in the morning about 4 to 5 after school. We're usually here till 5:30, 6 o'clock, trying to schedule around our own schedules. And we don't get them done within 1 or 2 days. It takes 3 to 4 weeks to get everybody. We each have about 24 core students, so we each have 24 conferences, and depending on, we try to be as flexible as we can to meet everybody's schedules. So depending on when parents can get in, it might take us almost a month to get in all of our conferences, if not more.
So, I think that teachers listening out there need to understand that that's quite a commitment from you to be meeting with the families.
Right. Yeah, where it's not asked by us, it's just it's been kind of what Swift House has done for over 20 years. It's kind of just part of our culture already, so it's one of those things that we're, I guess, accustomed to, and we enjoy doing it. And we could just use our conference day, but we feel like to do justice to the PLP and ePortfolio, it needs to have that. There needs to be that discussion with the families.
And do you have you been collecting evidence about how the parents feel about it at all, or have you reached out to them?
We do a parent it's called retreats, like a parent potluck, at least once a year, but we get a lot of parent feedback from that, and it's been extremely positive in terms of the communication piece. So we don't do like you did with a direct survey. But obviously we see them enough, and we have, again, 5th through 8th graders here, so by the time they're 8th grade students, we've developed a great relationship with those families throughout, and we'll touch base and just kind of ask families as they come in how it's been working, and they're pretty honest with their feedback, but it's been positive.
Okay, cool, good. So I just want to, is there anything else you want to add about conferences? Maura, did you want to chime in there?
Yeah, so I can share a little bit about our structure. So we run our student-led conference a little different than I think some other schools and teams do, because we really view it as a time for the kids only be talking about goals and showing the PLP. And so they're really like the stars of the day. They create a presentation that they give to their families. They identify academic successes and challenges that they also are presenting to parents. And the way that it works, we do it across one day, and the conferences are staggered by 5 minutes. And so every 5 minutes, it could be a new family would come into the room. And so as a teacher, I could have 3 families in the room at one time in different areas of the room. And they're sort of there to listen, and I'm really there just to answer questions at the end. And we have huge successes. So about 75% of our parents come out for that day. But because the student is really the leader, they can have the conference at home, and we use a Google survey to get feedback when it's done.
Okay, awesome. And now, I don't know if you said this before, but you had a fall conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a spring conference as well?
Yep, so we have our spring conferences in early March, which is a nice time because the student still has time in the year to continue working. And then at the end of the year, in June, we have a transition sort of expose, if you will, of the students' PLPs, and parents are invited to come into that, and the following year's teachers are invited to come into that and look at students' PLPs and goals, just as a way to help students transition to the following grade. Okay.
I just want to make sure I write that down, because I think that's really important. That idea of having the teachers from the next year come in. I think that's a cool idea, and I had never even thought about that, because we could do that here at Main Street Middle School, but we haven't done it thus far. And so, because we now have 5th graders at our school, mm-hmm. we could easily get to a point where I could be going down and looking at the 6th graders' PLPs. Okay, cool.
We actually do it. That's one of the commitments that we have as a school. So that end of the school year piece, we have a commitment that will cover classes. So, for example, when we go down to be with the 6th grade teachers, or the 6th grade to look at the 6th grader students' PLPs, the 6th grade teachers take our current students. So we all kind of are able to trade students in that way. And 5th through 8th grade, we do these transition meetings, which is really nice.
Okay, cool. Maura, do you want to kind of talk about also the core value program that you wrote about on the PLP Pathways blog?
Yep. So just published today, I think, is a blog post that I wrote about the partnership that our 7th grade team had with the Flying Ryan Hawks Foundation. And the Flying Ryan Hawks Foundation was founded after Ryan Hawks, who was a professional skier on the Free Ski World Tour, who was a student out of South Burlington, and grew up skiing in the Mad River Valley, who suffered an injury in Kirkwood, California, and ended up losing his life. His family, shortly after his passing, found a document that he created for himself, which was a list of his core values. And the Flying Ryan Hawks Foundation, one of their big, their founding principles is that they expose people to Ryan's core values, but also inspire people to create their own and sort of follow their passions. So what we did is, through the foundation, I worked with John Painter, who is, he was a Rowland Fellow out of South Burlington last year. And we sort of looked at what the South Burlington High School does with the Flying Ryan Foundation. And we're able to pull some curriculum together where our students were being exposed to Ryan's core values through a video on their website that's linked on the blog post. And then we really talked to our students about what core values were. Why do people have these? And kids were instantly hooked on Ryan's story and really looking at him as a role model and sort of a real concrete example of the why do I have to do this? And so we then had students create their own core values. We told the students that they only had to have 3 core values, and they would create an iMovie based on their values using images and music of their choice. And so many of the students, I would say every student, did about 5 to 7 core values and really went above and beyond, many of them using their own images and music that was really meaningful to them. And that's how we started the student-led conference this year, with the students sharing their videos that they created. And parents were so moved. Many of them were just completely touched, and I got a few emails about how nice it was to see their students being so thoughtful. And we also used it to think about, okay, so if these are what your core values are, if this is what's going to sort of guide you in your life, what are some goals that you can have that are in line with that, that will help you become the person that you want to be when you grow up. And so it really was a great way for us to get to know our students at the beginning of the year at sort of a deeper level, but also engage all students, especially the ones that typically don't like to open up about sort of identity projects and thinking about their sense of self.
Okay, great. And I just, I don't know, I just posted a project that Lori Lisai from Lamoille Union Middle School, she's got this project called The Geography of Self, and I had posted it on the PLP Pathways Plus page. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to check that out, but you should see it, man. It is unbelievable. And it's really slick. They use a Wix website, and they're also using this thing called ThingLink.
Yep.
And it's really good. And again, if you're looking for an identity project, it's posted there. It's also posted on the PLP Pathways webpage. And it was just really, like, I was really impressed. And I talked to her, and she said, good to go, that we could post it and share it. So there it is. Kevin, we had mentioned having you discuss a PLP checklist.
Yeah.
And can you talk to me about what that is and how that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just, it'll be easier if I do a screen share here. So this is what we give all of our students. Let's get to this. Are you guys seeing this document?
Yep.
Okay, great. So at the end of each trimester, we'll give our students this checklist for their e-portfolio and PLPs, and basically it's exactly that. It's a checklist that they'll go through. So their first goal, clear and effective communication. Again, these are all based on the transferable skills. This is what we expect to see on their pages. So at the top, they need to write what their goal is. They need to do a quick reflection about a paragraph, how they're doing on this goal for the trimester, progress and challenges, what are their next steps, and then they're providing 4 pieces of evidence with explanation of how does that evidence relate back to the goal. The reason for this is because in the past we know certain students, they're fairly independent with this, so when they're putting evidence on, some of it may not have related completely. So we want to make sure that they're thinking about, okay, what's this evidence actually showing? What am I getting out from this? So just a quick example of how we expect it to look. This is an 8th grade example, and I also have 7th, 6th, and 5th grade examples. So this is an 8th grader that we have. So his clear and effective communication is around writing. So uses criteria for effective writing. He just writes a reflection, his most improved goal, talking about how his writing's been a struggle. Gives a quick little piece about next steps, and then he'll provide his piece of evidence on here, and for each piece of evidence, he'll write a reflection about what this evidence shows. So this evidence shows that I can use a bland sentence and make it into a very detailed sentence. So really making sure that the students are thinking about, okay, I'm not just putting a document on here for the sake of having a piece of evidence on here. We want to think about, what is this evidence showing about my progress or challenges I'm having with this goal, or perseverance that I'm having toward achieving this goal. So again, we do this with our 5th through 8th graders, and it's been an amazing experience.
Now, that seems like a whole lot of evidence, right? But
right.
You guys have created a culture of that. Am I not mistaken? So that kids have been doing this kind of thing for several years before they get to 7th and 8th grade. Is that right?
Right. So we have our 5th, 6th, and 5th through 8th graders all do the same work. And we assign, so every Wednesday is our PLP time during our core meeting time. So we'll give them 25 minutes, and it's just set aside to do their weekly goal reflections, which is write a quick blurb every week that about their progress on their goals. And then if they have any evidence at that point, they can be uploading it to their e-portfolios. And that's something that's been part of our culture since day one, is just the idea of, we have these goals, we're going to reflect on them, and we're going to start gathering evidence for it.
Okay. And I just wanted to bring up one of the things that came out of the last webinar, and it's hard. I think it's hard to explain this to teachers, and I know that teachers are so busy, right? And they have so many things going on. And so, you know, committing to this kind of professional development, what's in it for me, right? Or what do I get out of it? And I just wanted to mention how last time we talked about tying the goals to evidence, right? And this seems like a super basic idea. And I guess it just never really dawned on me how clearly you have to make that connection for kids, but also how powerful that is when kids are independently able to set a goal and then independently able to go out and find evidence of their achieving that goal. And you know, after that last webinar, I turned around the next day and I started talking to my kids about, you know, what evidence is going to demonstrate that you have clearly communicated. And I also think that, you know, you're using the transferable skills. And the reason that I'm starting to like those more and more is that they can then pick from clear and effective communication. That can involve anything that they're doing. It can be from outside of school. It can be in another class. And I had kids actually, I might have mentioned this in our last webinar, but our kids went into their foreign language classes, and I worked with the foreign language teachers, and I had them write blogs about how they were working towards their goals in foreign language and whether or not those connected to their PLP goals. And I thought that was just a really important, I don't know, it was just an eye-opener for me. And so when I think about this kind of professional development, I put it into play like the next day, you know. And now, because you guys are tying your evidence to your goals so tightly, that's made me really think about doing that with our program as well. And again, I just think, you know, the gold standard for me would be for a kid to be able to create their own goal independently, identify how they were going to move through the steps to achieve that goal, but then independently also identify evidence, not just from my room, but from their, you know, everything that they're doing. And so that was really powerful, and I appreciated that.
Great.
Maura, how about you and goals?
So right now, currently, we're working on, students all have their goals set, and we're actually doing one of my favorite activities, and this is something that actually came out of a conversation that we had last year, Don, about how do we get the goals to stick? How do we get the kids to be thinking about it? And part of that is thinking about the evidence sort of all day long, everywhere they are. And one of the things that we had talked about, I remember you mentioning to me that the author of The Diary of a Wimpy Kid used to keep ideas on sticky notes and have them on his desk for things that he didn't want to forget. And having those sort of reminders builds that habit of working on those goals. So one of the things that we do is we create bumper stickers that go on each of the students' iPads, because we all have our own iPads, and teachers have computers. And so on our bumper sticker, which is, you know, kind of the size of a Post-it note, the students have to design a bumper sticker that has a visual for each of their goals and maybe a motivational phrase or something to help them remember. And so, and in our culture, our teachers, we all create bumper stickers as well, so we have them on our own computers. And that's just a way to sort of build that culture where we talk about our goals, but also that the kids are constantly seeing it everywhere they go. It also helps to communicate to teachers who might not be their core teachers. They might just be teachers who they have for, you know, unified arts or an elective, to ask them about their goals and to see sort of what they're working on, because it has sort of little clues for adults about what they're doing, and it just sort of creates that culture that we talk about our goals and we find evidence of the goals throughout the day, and it's a really great way to get our kids to remember the goals that they have. And so we're going to be doing that tomorrow as a way of us thinking about collecting evidence for our goals.
That's great.
Now, so Kevin, you say you have your kids look at your goals, their goals, like once a week?
Yeah.
And Maura, you said you're doing that tomorrow. Is that something that you also do on a weekly basis?
Yep, so we spend at least a half an hour every Friday collecting evidence and reflecting on our goals. We have reflection prompts that have been taken from the REAL framework, and I can share our reflection prompts once again that the students use for their blogs. And we also have students reflecting within the core classes on specific pieces of work. And so our kids are constantly taking pictures of work throughout the day on their iPad and throughout the week. And then on that Friday time, that's when they're sort of compiling and labeling things on Blogger so they can go back and find it later.
Right. You know, one of the things that I'm noticing, so we're not one-on-one. We just have a computer cart, and we have, you know, full access to that. But one of the things I'm really noticing is that the lack of multimedia. When you know, like with an iPad, you can just, or a phone, you can just be taking pictures all the time, right? And our kids, I think our kids are at a disadvantage. You know, personally, I think the iPads are kind of hard for some things, like editing web pages and whatnot. And I like having a keyboard when I'm typing. But in terms of the pictures and the multimedia, I can really see that our kids are kind of at a disadvantage for collecting visual evidence. And that's something that we need to kind of work on. And I guess this idea of goals too. So what's kind of interesting is that I'm also teaching, I'm rolling out PLPs through professional development to our teachers. And I'm moving them through the personal learning framework where we talked about identity, and now we're going into growth and reflection and goals. And in my class, we've actually kind of toned down the PLP a little bit. Like the first trimester, there's this kind of real focus on getting the PLP done and going through the process. And now we're much more into, we've set some goals, it's time to find evidence, it's time to reflect, and reflecting on a regular basis using that blogger. But in talking, and I'd be interested to know too, at both of your schools, if all teachers are thinking about goals the same way that we are, and if all teachers are being as explicit about goals and as explicit about evidence, because from the feedback that I'm getting, there tends to be a range of you know, the goals and how people are setting them and how kids are actually viewing them and reflecting on them. And what's your take on whether or not other teachers at your school, how they view goals and goal setting?
I can answer that. So one of the things that's a little different about People's Academy is that 5 through 8, we had teachers come together and design the PLP and sort of our platform together, and also come up with how, sort of what our non-negotiables would be as a school. And so we have conversations 5 through 8 a lot about PLPs and where we are and what we're doing. And so, so one of the non-negotiables is that every grade will have a minimum of 2 goals tied to the transferable skills. Every kid will do student-led conferences at least twice a year. Every team will use evidence to show growth on that March conference. The way that it's implemented looks different in every team, and sort of where the PLP lives, whether it's a whole team thing, whether it happens at TA, that's a little different. But I know that it's a conversation that's happening across the building, and we've really worked to develop some common language around that, so that no matter where the kids are, they all know, we know sort of what the kids are doing. And we do check-ins too. We do faculty-wide share-outs periodically, like, okay, so in the 7th grade, can you present what you guys are doing with the PLP? So then we sort of get ideas from each other and also know sort of what they're doing.
Okay. Kevin?
So similar to the check-ins there, we have a PLP committee, which has 1 member from each team. In Williston, our upper house teams, our 5-8 teams, that we meet once a month. Just to do that, we each share kind of where we are. We, in the beginning of the year, kind of created our own agenda for the layout we want to meet all the requirements by Act 77. And then once a month in our weekly faculty meetings, we will share out, the PLP committee will share either what's coming up, answer any questions. We're using the platform Naviance to host a lot of things. Our team on Swift House isn't using it as extensively because we do have the ePortfolio and that system that's been essentially taking care of all those requirements. Other teams, I think, are sticking more with just what's on Naviance, and I honestly can't speak to how in depth they're getting. I know a lot of teams are just starting to create that one academic goal for their students in terms of how often they reflect. I can't speak to that, but I think it's an ongoing process, and there is buy-in. Like teachers definitely understand that this is good for the kids, and they're vested in it. But I think it's also a slow-rolling process where they're trying to figure out. The big question is, where am I going to have time with this? Like, how am I going to meet with all my students to have a reflection, to talk to them about goals? Because we all have different schedules, and the way our schedules are laid out. Luckily, on Swift House, we have a lot of flexibility with the way we lay out our schedule because we're all generalist teachers, whereas other teams might not have that same flexibility.
Okay. So, sorry, I have a cold here. Talk to me about this PLP committee.
So at the beginning of the school year, our principal just sent out an email to our entire faculty just asking if we'd like to send we needed to send one representative from each team to serve on this committee, and it was really just to make sure that we are, there's been a big push across our whole district, make sure that we're covering the letters of the law that Act 77 has rolled out. So we're just the task force there. We're just making sure that we all have common language that we're using and that everybody's on board. And basically that PLP committee team is supposed to go back out to share with their larger teams and make sure that everybody knows the upcoming requirements. And again, we're really just looking at 7th graders with the PLP committee. In Swift House, we do it 5 through 8, but the rest of the school is really just focusing on that 7th grade group. And just making sure that everybody is on board and everybody understands what is required based on Act 77. Like, what are the steps? What are the surveys we have to take? How often do we have to check in for reflections and next steps?
Got it. Okay, I mean, because that sounds like some of the things that you guys have said are sort of interesting, because I don't think we have that structure yet, those structures in place like the PLP committee, or also even the having staff get up at meetings, and individuals get up at staff meetings and kind of reflect on where they are in terms of the PLP. And that's something that, I'm definitely going to take back to our staff, because I think those are great ideas. So again, I mean, this is good stuff. I don't know if it's helping you guys as much as it helps me, but it's definitely got me thinking quite a bit. And I just want to talk a little bit. Hold on a second. I had a sticky note with some. So I just had a couple things. We've talked about goals. We've talked about evidence. We've talked a little bit about reflection. I'd kind of like to know just maybe what your next steps are with the PLP, or sort of where you're headed. And then I'd like to go over maybe some resources too before we close out here. So if you could just kind of let us know and let the audience know what your next steps with the PLP, what that looks like.
Let me go. I'll go.
Yeah.
All right. So luckily, we've had this in our system as part of our culture for quite some time. So it's not like this is a new setting for us. So we're really in that stage where we're looking to enhance it and revamp our process in whatever way we can. Since we are one-to-one with Chromebooks, our next steps are really pushing the envelope to see how much can we do with these Chromebooks and what can we do digitally. So like really getting kids to maybe do a screencast where they talk through their PLP so they can share it with others, maybe doing a digital story. So we want to use all the apps, extensions, functions that we can to make sure that we tell them, this is your personal learning plan. Like, this should be the highest quality work you have. You should be really proud of this by the time you're done. And 8th graders, by the time you go into high school, you should be able to send this link on to your upcoming advisor, and they should have a really good snapshot of who you are as an individual, both inside and outside of school, and what your strengths and challenges are.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask you a question about that screencasting. Are you using Google Hangouts within your own class, like to have between kids?
Nope. So for screencasting on our Chromebook, so on Google Chrome, there's an app called Snagit, and it allows people to take screenshots, region shots, and it allows you to do screencasts. And what it does is, as soon as you take an image or anything, it saves it directly and organizes it in your drive under a folder. So students, if they ever take a screenshot, they title it, it goes right to their drive. They can't lose it. And what we have them do is share that folder so anybody with the link can view it. So then when they upload those things onto their portfolio, we don't have to worry about the whole going through the sharing settings. So once that folder is shared, any screencast they do, any screenshot they take, any region shot they take, it's all right there.
So this is kind of interesting to me. So you could have a kid do a little screenshot of them, for example, typing a paragraph and revising it, and they could label it revising. It goes into that screencast folder, and then that could be actually a link, or it could be embedded on their PLP.
Yeah, and what's great about this is everything that goes in that folder can be directly embedded onto a Google site, so we don't have to worry about different links, so they can just show up like you saw those documents. And I know, Don, you were giving us examples when you came to present our faculty. You can just put those things right on, so it looks really clean, so somebody can just click on it on that page without having a new window open up. Okay,
and so another question. Do you know if is that like a Google add-on, or is that a separate program?
It's a Google add-on and extension.
All right. That's on tap for tomorrow. Cool. And so, Maura, what's up with you?
So the next thing that we're doing is really working with our students to collect that evidence. But we're also at the point where students have had their goals now for about 3 weeks that they've been working on them. And so this is a time that we start to have conversations with students about whether or not they're a just right goal, and maybe we need to stop and adjust a little bit, or think about, making more of a thick goal than a thin goal. So making sure that it's something that, they can provide a lot of evidence on, and it will really show growth for them as a learner. And we're really trying to find ways that students are then able to individualize their instruction within the school. Like, how does their school day look different based on these goals? Because, we do have a traditional day. We don't have a lot of flexibility with our schedules, and so we keep trying to say, where are students seeing this in their day? How is this not an add-on? Which I think we conceptually as adults can find out and figure out really well, and we can point to these are the things that we've done, but we want the kids to be able to identify it themselves. So that's sort of the big push for us.
So I guess not to bring up a whole hornet's nest, but have you guys started using the language of the proficiency-based graduation requirements in your class, and maybe even with goals and with reflections and things like that?
So we use our big focus this year. So last year really was implementing the PLP, rolling that out, and this year it's implementing the graduation requirements and the proficiencies. We're using learning scales in our class a lot, and so today, for example, we're in the middle of a unit on immigration, and so we took one of our graduation requirements that we created a learning scale for our 7th graders, and we haven't even started really this next set of the unit, and students are identifying where they are on the learning scale so that they can show growth over time. So today they took the learning scale, put it into Notability, marked up where they were on it, then they pushed it into their blog as a screenshot, and they then wrote about what evidence they have to prove, where they are on the learning scale right now. And then we'll meet with them, probably we'll have them do it 3 times over the course of sort of this learning task, and so that they can use it to have evidence and reflect on their learning over time. The trick is I feel like I haven't really figured out well. I know that the portfolio, I really view that as sort of the house for everything, but I'm feeling like I have goals and I have graduation requirements and learning scales, and they're not 100% meshing. We put what we call mission-related goals, which are transferable skills, in learning scale form for learning tasks for kids. So there might be a proficiency-based graduation requirement and a transferable skill on one scale. But in terms of the kids setting goals around that, we haven't quite mastered that yet.
Okay. Kevin?
Yes. Well, I'm sorry, what was the question?
The PBGRs?
Oh, right. So we are using basically just a top-down method. We looked at what CVU is doing for their grad requirements, which is using the 5 transferable skills. And so we revamped what we're doing. We used to use the vital results, and we changed that, which are very similar to the transferable skills. So now we're just using the transferable skills. And within that, I think I shared the document before. we use some of the old goals that we have used and try to place them in the different criteria. So what kind of goals did we use in the past that would fit into that communication goal, the transferable skill? What kind of goals would fit into the integrative thinking category? And then from there, we sent that out to parents and students, and that's helped to get the brainstorming going, because I think it was helpful for them to see, oh, these could be goals. And then we brought in from their hopes and dreams conferences what their strengths and challenges were, excuse me, and from there we said, okay, here's your strengths, here's your challenges, here's some different goals we can think about in terms of, you know, this category, and we would either take one that was already written and tweak it to fit them personally, or if it was, you know, as it worked for them, we would take that, and then they're finding evidence to meet those goals. So that's kind of how we've gone about with making that connection between our goals and what the transferable skills or PGBRs are.
Okay, good. So we're kind of starting to get to the end here. I just want to thank you guys for, again, your contributions. And sort of, we've talked about where you guys are going. We've talked about the importance of reflection. Do you have any, final thoughts for maybe teachers who are out there, or resources that you'd like to share about your PLP process? I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm ready for a couple days off.
Yes.
This is a long stretch, and I'm starting to kind of operate on autopilot. But anything to share, any observations for people who are watching out there?
Yeah, I can definitely share something. So, in thinking about, especially if it's your first year of implementing PLPs, one of the hardest things is helping students create goals, especially if they don't see value in setting goals at that time. And it's okay to just start somewhere. It's okay to just have a student set a short-term goal that they're going to be able to achieve easily. You don't have to get 100 out of 100. Just have them start somewhere and be able to reflect, and then keep going. I know that was one of the big challenges that I faced last year with some of my students. And then over time, it does get better, and especially as kids have multiple years under their belt. But for those people who are just starting, it's okay. Just have conversations with your kids and model it yourself. Have conversations about how you're setting goals. Have them ask their parents about goals that they might have, and just start somewhere. It's all good work.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Just the fact that you're having these conversations and getting kids to think about what their goals are and how they can reflect on them and become self-advocates. I think those are the biggest things that come out of this work. Mm-hmm. And it's the biggest thing, I think, too, is structurally you have to figure out how it's going to work. And, don't try to find time, but you got to make time for it. It's really so important, whether it's with a small group of kids or if you can ever get one-on-one time. That's where that reflection really happens. And I know I see Megan posted a question on our little question side there about extending PLPs at the high school level. And I know we can share all the resources we use at the middle level, and I think they can all be transferred over to that high school level. It's a matter of finding the personnel to meet with kids. I really think you need to have somebody that's going to have a connection. So an advisory system, I think, works great. But that all, again, comes down to that structural level within the school.
And I just want to thank Megan for joining. I'm not sure exactly how Megan got connected with us, but she joined the PLP Pathways on Google+, and I appreciate that, and welcome, Megan. Next time, maybe we can get you at a seat on, right here on they call it the film strip. And actually, to be honest with both of you, last week or last month when I lost the call, I dropped off. It just causes me so much stress, and so today I was telling Kevin that they created a new Google+. Did you guys see that? So the new Google+ doesn't support Hangouts on Air unless you're on an Android. And so I've been talking to Audrey Homan at the Tarrant Institute of what that's going to look like. But anyway, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is actually the transition to high school and PLPs, because I'm working with a couple students who were on our team last year, and I have data from last year that said that 90% of our kids thought the PLP was worthwhile. And then anecdotally, I've heard that in the 3 months they've been in high school, some of that momentum has been lost, right? And I don't know if it's because of a different life stage, totally changing the social environment. I'm not sure what it is, but I actually sent out a survey today to my kids from last year to try and get some more information or insight about maybe why that has lost momentum, and how could we as middle school teachers maybe build some bridges to support the transition. Because I think what I'm hearing is that kids here are, it's a more personalized experience at the middle school level. Like Kevin just mentioned, having those one-on-one conversations and being with the same person for 1 or 2 or 3 years, they really develop a relationship. And then when they get to the high school, again, this is just what I'm hearing, that there might be more of a focus on the academics, which obviously makes sense, but there might be some dissonance there. And so I'm very interested in what that transition looks like and what are some of the mechanisms that we can build into the PLP to make that transition a little bit more smooth and effective. Because I know that I don't think middle school had as big of a challenge moving to proficiencies as the high school does, and I also don't think sort of this whole flexible pathways, I think, is really going to be a challenge to be implemented appropriately. So that's something that I'm definitely looking at. I also just want to point out one of the things that has become, I mean, this is obvious, right, but it's more and more clear to me, is how important it is to get feedback from your kids on a regular basis. So not just reflection, like how'd you do, and what was hard, what was easy, but how could we improve this, right? And having kids, I'm having my kids answer more questions on Google Forms and give me more feedback on a regular basis than I ever have before. And that's so important to me, And one of the things when we talk about goals and evidence is, are those my goals or are they the kids' goals? You know what I mean? Like when I'm putting, oh, you should put this paper that we wrote, you should put that on your evidence page. Is it because I put a lot of time and effort into planning it, or is it because the kid did a good job on it? And so figuring out what evidence do we really want to have on that page, and what does the kid want to have on that page, to me that's something I've been thinking about. I also just wanted to share real quickly with you guys, if you see in the chat function, the Gates Foundation actually just came out with an article that I posted about the benefits of personalized learning, and how schools, they did a study, I think, of 62 schools, and those schools that had more elements of personal learning saw more success with the kids. That was a really interesting report, and I would recommend, if you can just skim and scan it, I think it's pretty good. And then also Life Lagaros had another blog entry on reflection, and I thought that also was pretty good, just to continue remembering about that reflection. So our next webinar is on December 17th. Hopefully there'll be some snow on the ground, and hopefully both of you can attend, because again, I just think it's really powerful professional development, and I'm hoping that we can increase our viewership. We can't monetize it yet, but if we get enough viewers, maybe we'll be able to. And did you guys have any final thoughts about PLPs or school, or how you're feeling, or anything? Nope.
Nope. The one thing, Don, I know that our viewers and Megan and Jen who are with us, they can't see our chat function that we have between the three of us, so we'll have to put those documents someplace else where other people can access them.
Okay, I can do that. I can actually put that on we have a Today's Meet page that's going. Great. I probably should have mentioned that like an hour ago. And we can put that there, and I'll make all these available. I just want to, again, thank you guys for your input. I'm just sitting here listening to you, and I'm thinking, if all the teachers in the state were working as hard as you guys were and were as thoughtful about it, I mean, amazing things would be happening. And you guys are just doing a great job, and I really appreciate it. And I want to wish you guys a really happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the time off, right? Get some sleep.
Yes, thanks. You as well.
And, we'll see you hopefully we'll see you on December 17th. I'll be in touch with the resources. And again, thank you very much. And for anybody out there, you can follow us on PLP Pathways at gmail.com. We're also on Google+, the old Google+. And have a nice evening, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Yep, bye now.